listening to Honestly Aging by Friends Life Care VigR, a podcast where we explore what it's like getting older, the peaks, the valleys, and everything in between. In this season of Honestly Aging by Friends Life Care VigR, we are covering topics related to vibrant aging. I'm your host, Cheryl Praska. Let's grow old together. On today's episode, I'm joined by David Stewart, who is the founder of Ageist, a media company and agency that champions the vitality, capabilities, and influence of the modern 50 plus. He is also the host of the SuperAge podcast. David is a passionate champion of the modern 50 plus lifestyle and a leading authority on the mindset and aspirations that drive this influential demographic. As the go-to reference on people in this age group, he frequently shares his expertise and insights with major media publications, including Wall Street Journal, CNN, Forbes, and Fortune. David also consults for a wide range of Fortune 500 brands and businesses and is a popular keynote speaker. David, welcome. So excited to have you. How are you today?
I'm good. I just came back from my physical trainer, and so everything from about my mid chest to my toes is sore.
Well, I'm sure you're also feeling that energy from having just
Yeah,
worked out. So I'm lucky to have you right after that.
absolutely. Good to be here.
So you're joining me today to talk about ageist, super aging, longevity, and encore careers.
Mhm.
So to get us started, can you first share a bit about your background and journey to launching Ageist and the Super Age podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a long, fairly illustrious career as a photographer. I had my first had my first ad in Vogue when I was about 23, and then I lived in Paris for a while, and then I moved to New York, and I worked for all the magazines, and I was doing a lot of advertising and traveling around the world. And in sort of my mid 50s, I started to notice that all the people I was taking pictures of, they're all staying the same age. They're all 22 to 28, and I'm getting older. My friends are getting older. And then I noticed all the communications, well, maybe not all, but most of the communications aimed at people my age were not very nice. They were medicalized and ultimately infantilized, telling me all the things that I couldn't do and I should be very careful. And I thought, I don't really like that. And what's this about? Why are we doing this? And so that's why I started Aegis, was to understand. First, it was just an investigation. Why is this going on? Doesn't make any sense to me. And then let's think about, what is this new generation of people that are aging in a way that's very different than their parents, and understanding that age is not equally distributed. That some people, I think I saw a thing today. Mick Jagger's 81, and
And a new dad, right? Newish dad?
something, I don't know. I don't know how many children Mick has out there, but quite conceivable. But I mean, that's one version of 81, and there are a whole spectrum of ways that people age. So we wanted to understand that a little bit.
So at Ageist, you profile individuals who are breaking the mold of what society expects from the 50 plus demographic. Throughout your, I believe it's 9 years of doing this, what have you learned?
Things have actually changed a lot in 9 years. It may not seem like it has, but it has. So back when we started Ageist, it was very hard for me to even get people to profile, because I said, part of the deal is we have to tell people your age. And that was a big stumbling block 9 years ago. And now it's not at all. Um, what we're seeing is people are more willing to um, live a life that perhaps they is unexpected to them. So I know, like, I'm 65, and when I was 20, there was just it was just unimaginable that I would be the person I am today at 65. So we're seeing more and more people exploring what the possibilities of that can be.
So you're talking about how individuals are now more willing to talk about being 50 plus.
Mhm,
And like I personally, I'm starting to see older individuals incorporated more into
mhm,
advertising and specific product lines, healthful product lines, not medicalized product lines, being geared toward the older population. Have
mhm.
you at Aegis, do you feel that you've been contributing to that, or how might you be contributing to it?
I think in a really tiny way, yes. But we do work with a lot of large corporations. Um, Most of it's NDA stuff, but they're like big household names. And they come to us because they don't understand how to communicate with this demographic, which is fair enough because most of the people who are involved in communications, they're, late 20s, 30s. Um, and so asking them to time travel into the future just isn't fair. It's just hard for them. So they come to us because it's completely natural for us. We understand how to speak, how to what the visuals should look like, and then discussing the products because there's within some of these corporations there's this idea that at a certain age, I don't know, like 40, 45, we just don't care what things look like, or we don't care about any of this. Like they think like, well, these old people, they don't care. They'll just buy anything. Well, not really. So we help them out with that.
So, is there anything more that we should know or you want to share about what you and your team do at Aegis? And I'd be interested to hear where you hope to take it next.
Well, I would say our mission at Ageist is we provide inspirational, aspirational, and attainable content. And the tent pole every week is a profile of someone that we think is interesting. Now, we stay away from celebrity types. I mean, like, once every couple of years, we'll do somebody who's famous. But the thing is, Planet Celebrity is a very different place. And it's just not, it doesn't fit the attainable part of what we talk about. So we feature people who would be people that you would probably, be your friends or something that would be somewhat normal. And that's one of the things that we're doing is we're trying to normalize this idea that you can be 50, 60, 70, even in your 80s and be really vital and vivid and engaged in things. And I want to be clear, we don't fight against anything. Um, we don't do that. We just show positive stories of what can be. And then around that tentpole profile, we do every week sort of the 360 ecosystem around the way people age well. And so a lot of that is health stuff, it's fitness stuff, it's travel, it's finance, it's a lot of things like that around that. But the main thing is like, here's a person, here's what they look like, this is what they did, these are the challenges they're facing, this is how they overcome them, and these are their ambitions.
How do you find the people who you profile?
That's a really good question. So that's changed a lot over the years. In the beginning, there was a lot of begging that um, so that's not the case anymore. Now, pretty much everybody gets sent to us in some way. Somebody recommends them, somebody knows them, or they just write in and say, "Hey, I'm interested. You should like know about me."
Mhm.
So we get most of it that way now. And to be an ageist, you have to be not just interesting and be a certain age. You have to have some kind of a story arc that is useful for people. So that's really always how I'm looking at things. How useful is this to my people? What can they learn from this? What can they take away from this? And that's always how I look at it. And we try our best. We publish gender neutral, so it's every other week. We do a man and a woman. The rest of the diversity is a bit challenging, I have to say. It's not. I just want to be clear. It's not for lack of us trying, but
Mhm.
it can be somewhat difficult because what we have found is there are just as aging. There's a spectrum of the way people age. There are also really pretty dramatic cultural divides, which are often race based around people age, the way people age.
And some of that may be access to healthcare, unfortunately, because as we know that people of color over time have been discriminated against in healthcare and not necessarily given the type of healthcare that the white population has received. So I hear what you're saying about being able to age vibrantly. You sometimes you have to be in good health. And so it is unfortunate. And I hear what you're saying about why there might be challenges there.
Mhm. And I think it's more than that. I mean, truthfully,
Hmm.
the amount of black males that we've approached to want to be an ageist who would be great and have said no, it's like a 95% fail. Uh,
Hmm.
and I th-
Hmm.
and the women it's different, but the men it's hard. Um, and they, for a lot of reasons, don't want to be seen with us. Um, okay, all I can do is ask.
Hmm. Well, I commend you for continuing to ask and just having that lens of diversity on as you are trying to do your profiles, and that is really saying something about you and your organization.
Well, I think it's just sort of part and parcel. If you think that what increasingly happens as one ages is one gets put into this group of the other, like we're suddenly like the other at a certain point, and it, to be gender, sexual orientation, race, religion, all this stuff, each one of those categories is, in a sense, an other. And so, what we try to do is we're like, hey, um, this is sort of, we're all not going to be here at some point. We all go through certain things. So, let's try and like stay away from the other part of this. And part of this, I want to say, we don't profile anybody under 50, and about 40% of my audience is under 50
Hmm.
because they want to, they want to be like us. They want to learn to be like us as they get older.
Would you prefer to age independently in your own home or live in a nursing facility? I know what I'd rather do. Friends Life Care membership offers just that. Plan today for a future lived at home with vitality, independence, growth, and resilience while protecting your savings. Learn about your options at a free seminar or webinar. Register at friendslifecare.org/register or call 215-628-8964. So let's get into your pillars of super aging.
Oh, yeah.
What are they and how can older adults put them into practice?
Okay. I want to say, I didn't invent any of this stuff. Like, if you ask the ancient Romans, they're going to tell you exactly the same thing. It's pretty simple. Everybody wants, they want the special red pill, whatever. That's the exotic stuff. We don't even get into that until you get sort of these five basic things right. So, number one, you got to sleep.
Mm.
Like, if you're not sleeping, figure it out. Um,
Mhm.
um, there's plenty of I mean, we talk about like different things you should and shouldn't do. There's plenty of information out there that can help you sleep. And if you have a sleep disorder, address it. Get a sleep specialist who can help you sleep because nothing else I'm going to tell you is going to work unless you sleep. The second thing is you have to move and use your body. And this can mean different things to different people, but there's sort of, a few aspects of this. You need to keep your muscles strong because they will diminish with age. It becomes much harder to gain muscle and you lose it much quicker. So, a lot of the reasons people fall is because they don't have the type 2 muscle fiber to get that leg out there quickly in front of them to stop them from falling. So you want to pay attention to that. You want to pay attention to your cardiovascular capacity. Then you want to think about, what are you eating? You have 100% control over what you put in your mouth. I didn't put that Twinkie in your mouth, you did. So you can make intelligent, healthy, sensible choices around food. And food is something that we don't get very prescriptive with because I think it is very individualistic. I think each of our biologies is a little different. There are certain sort of clear things you don't want to do. You want to keep the glucose load down. That's not so great. You want to make sure you get enough fiber. You want to make sure you drink enough water. Make sure you get enough protein for the level of activity that you have. The nutrition part is actually quite complicated, and it's something I think everybody sort of has questions about and struggles about because it's a dynamic thing, right? It's not the same day to day. We have different levels of activity, we do different things, and it changes with time. Um, the other one is your stress. So you need a way to manage stress. And stress really underlies so many of the diseases of aging. And so we just recommend that people have some sort of a stress management program plan. And that can be some people like to meditate, some people like to go bowling with their friends, some people like to walk in the woods. It doesn't matter to me what you do. But you need to have something in place there that manages that. So what do you do? Sleep, food, activity, stress. Okay, so the last one is connection. And
Mhm.
connection is sort of a larger bucket. And by connection, I mean connection to others, connection to your purpose in life, connection to something greater than you, so that it's not just you floating around out here in the world doing this stuff. Connection is about you with others, with something greater than yourself. And so if you get those lined up, and what I tell people is, sort of look at these and like which one of these is sort of your weak point. So address that. Like whatever that is, level that up to the rest of it, because all these things sort of work together. Then once you've got that dialed in, then okay, we can talk about all the other sort of exotic, like I don't like the word hack, but stuff that people are doing to help them live longer and better. But really, none of that stuff's going to work unless you get these five things right.
And I love what you said about how these 5 tenets, they're going to change over time.
Uh-huh.
Because I'm thinking about even like the importance of some of them where like my especially my exercise and nutrition goals have changed so much as
Mhm.
I've gone through my 20s and my 30s. I care about different things. I put my time in different buckets,
Mhm.
and as I get older, I'm probably not going to run for the rest of my life. I can walk, I
Mhm.
can hike.
Mhm.
So just being okay and normalizing that it is going to change over time, and maybe our bodies aren't going to look the same, but they're still healthy, and we're still putting all of this effort into making our days and our lives just feeling good throughout them.
I think that one of the main differences is when you're in your 20s, you can sort of do anything. Um,
Mhm.
you can, you know,
No sleep.
it just doesn't. You have a lot of elasticity there. But as you get older, you need to be more conscious about things. You need to really think like, okay, did I eat enough protein today? Okay. What oh geez, I haven't had my activity today. Okay, I gotta go do that. Um, I need to be asleep at this point. Therefore, I need to prepare myself at this point. That stuff never entered my mind in my 20s. Like it doesn't matter as much. But as you get a little older, you really need to be purposeful about a lot of these things, which doesn't mean you have to be obsessed and crazy about the whole thing, but to just be a little more purposeful and directed because they do have a greater day to day effect on your life. And that day to day effect will have a cumulative effect going forward.
And something I have found that has gotten more and more challenging as I've gotten older is the connection. Because think
Mhm.
about when we're in school and even in college and right out of college, living usually sometimes in an area that's very populated. There's all these people that you are kind of like at your disposal. Then as time goes on, some people have
Mhm.
families, move to more rural areas. It is so much more difficult,
Mhm.
and just really having to put more time into that
Mhm.
connection bucket. And I can imagine that would, evolve as I continue to age, hopefully, and just having to be more thoughtful about it as I get older.
100%. And unless you do put the same amount of purposeful effort into that, it's not going to go to a good spot because what's
Mm,
going to happen if you need to think of age as this sort of inertia pressing in on us all the time, and we need to continually push out against it. And if we don't, what happens is, we're going to end up, in a lazy boy chair in front of a television alone with no friends. It's a pretty dark place.
mm,
So we need to continually, I look at a lot of these things as assets. And the same way we need to nurture our bank account, we need to nurture these sort of these other asset areas. Because if we don't, the compounding goes the other way. We start paying interest. We start not getting the compounding, the positive compounding. And I think that the connection one can be particularly difficult, especially for men. If they're single, they're widowed, divorced, it can be very difficult for them to go
mhm,
out and make new connections. It's not super easy for women, but it seems to be a little easier. And I tell the men, like, hey, just like buck up and do this. like, like start saying yes. Start,
mhm.
be a joiner. Oh, and the line that I've used is, whenever I join something or somebody says yes, whatever, I just say, like, hey, I'm new here. Could you help me out? I don't know how to do something. And as soon as you say that, like, okay, now you don't have to be perfect. You're just like the new guy, and they're going to help you out.
Mhm.
Other people love to do that.
I totally see what you're saying, and, like, I've always naturally been a joiner, and if I get an invite, I'm going. It's fine, that's great. I don't care who's there, I'll have a good time. However, my spouse, he's different. He
Mhm,
would be more like, "Well, I don't really have to go," or, "Oh,
mhm.
no, it's fine. I'll stay home." I'm like, "We're going." So I have that example. But some just of the other men in my life, I can see what you're saying, and that would make it more difficult, of course.
It's these things are not impossible, and a lot of this is just learning to just sort of learning to do it. It's just a skill set. And, as you get more comfortable just saying hi to strangers at like the UPS store or something, you realize, like, oh, it's okay. Like,
Mhm.
they're not going to bite me. I'm all right.
Right.
And you can do this, but it does require actions on your part, because if not, the friend group that you have is going to shrink. I absolutely guarantee you.
Mm. So let's get into longevity.
Yeah.
How do you see it affecting individual lives, and how about society?
Ooh, those are big questions. Okay. So I think the biggest, so we are living longer.
Mhm.
And we are, if you sort of carve out opioid abuse, gunshots, stuff like that. If you're 60 now, your lifespan is much greater than it was 20 years ago at 60. Um, so I think this is generally a positive. The thing to focus on is health span.
Mhm.
So can we live healthier longer? That's really the thing. A lot of the science people I talk to seem to feel that we are on the cusp of living much longer and healthier. This, of course, has yet to be proven. I haven't met anybody 150 yet. Um, Seems like that's on the horizon, though. I don't know about 150, but I think people in general will be. I think 100 will be sort of like the new 70 uh,
Mm.
is what I see could happen. I'm not saying it will, but I think there's a pretty good chance of that. I think as a society, there are good points and bad points to this. So the good points are every time somebody dies, all their knowledge leaves. Like that's it, it's gone. Um, so that's a tremendous loss. I think also we're entering a time of people having these longer health spans, and we're entering sort of new developmental stages in human development that we just haven't had before. Like we know what a teenager is, we know what people in their 50s are sort of like, and
Yeah.
60s. Like what are people like in their hundreds? I have no idea. Like what do you call that phase? Like how do how do people behave in that phase? I have no idea. I think of course it's a good it's all around a positive thing. The the downside is if people are living longer but not healthy. So nobody wants to do that. There's a fantastic economic burden on society, which will be unsustainable. So I think that I've spoken to Andrew Scott. So he's a PhD economist at Oxford, and he's written a number of books. One of which was The 100-Year Life, and he's just got a new one out that I haven't read yet. And he talks about for every year that you can increase health, like someone being healthy and being employed, you increase the national GDP 4%, which is just like extraordinarily huge number. So I think it's good. I think there's going to be there are other adjustments that will happen here that are going to be sort of tricky. That like if someone lives in a or works in a corporation, there's generally this sort of ladder that you go up, which is caused by vacancies by people leaving. But if people aren't leaving, then you get this sort of logjam. But maybe there's some other phase that goes further up that we haven't explored yet. We don't quite know how that's going to happen. I think I've spent time in Japan, which is a much older society than the US. And what you see there is it's not, I mean, it's initially a little odd. You go into a restaurant and all the people like running the restaurant are in their 80s.
Mhm.
Um, or, when you land in Tokyo at the airport, there's you sort of go through these machines and stuff to get you in, get you out of the airport. And you see a mix of like 18, 19, 20-year olds and 90, they appear to be like in their 90s. And they all sort of work together and, it's fine in a way that you just wouldn't see here.
Mhm.
I think that's really interesting. I've spent time in Spain where, you go to like a cafe, bar, music place, and it's like 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And there's everything from 16-year-olds to 100-year-olds in there. And it's all fine. So I think that some of that I'm hoping we'll see here. We'll see. I think it's going to be really interesting. I think that there's a lot of big stuff going out in the world today. There's the climate issues, there's AI, but I think this one is going to be really interesting as people start to live longer, healthier, what that looks like.
So you're already touching on it, and it's the fact that as we live longer and we have more time on this planet, we sometimes also have more financial need. And older adults speaking about in the United States, they may want to or need to pursue what I've heard called an encore career. I don't that doesn't necessarily get to what you're talking about with like up the ladder at a corporation, but
Mhm.
I'd be curious to hear what advice you might have for people seeking to continue work after that initial retirement or that initial retirement age, that's 65.
That can be really fraught, to be truthful.
Okay.
Um, I think what you want to do is you want to plan for this. If you're in some sort of a corporation where there's mandatory retirement, or you're thinking retiring or pulling back, you need to really carefully plan this out. This is a major life switch change that it's up. I mean, it's right up there from like leaving home and going to college. It's a big deal that a lot of our sense of worth, our sense of community, not only and we get a paycheck. There's a lot of stuff that's tied up in work. So thinking about what do you want to do next? Okay, you've sort of, for whatever reason, you're not going to be doing this thing that you're doing now. Okay, so where do you go? And to really think about that, to think about what do you want to do, um, and I think, I mean, there's a whole sort of like industry out there around, you know, this helping people through midlife, and what are we gonna, how are we gonna move on? I keep it really simple. Your purpose in life is to become the best version of you. The meaning you, the meaning that you're going to derive is from the things that you find meaning with now. Focus on that. And I would say it comes down to being useful.
Mm.
I think that a lot of people, when they get to this point, they're like, okay, I'm going to stop doing this other thing. I'm going to follow my passion. That is a huge mistake. Um, I am vehemently opposed to this. It's about navel gazing. It's about it's all about me, me, me. And by the way, this thing that you're looking for is going to change from hour to hour, day to day, and year to year. So just stop it with that. Um, and think about how can you be useful, because the places that we can be useful, purpose and usefulness leads to passion. Passion does not lead to usefulness and purpose. They're different. And so much of what we want as human beings is relevance, to be important to people. What, like, why are you getting out of bed in the morning? Um, and think about that. And I think, this is again a huge spectrum here. For some people, it's about lowering their golf handicap. That becomes their thing. Okay, that's great. I have no problem with that. Yeah, do that. For a lot of people, though, they need a bigger reason than that. They need to have people that count on them. They need to have people who feel that they are important in their lives. And that can be as simple as like, my neighbor needs some help taking it's Tuesday, I got to help my neighbor take her trash out. Okay. It could be something much bigger if you want. Um, but to think about that, the and focus on this idea of usefulness. And I think that for some people, when they if they've had a corporate career, they sort of push back when I say this. Like they're like, oh well, it was all about other people. It wasn't about me. This is me time. I say, okay, why don't you have a 6 month run with that and get back to me and we'll
Mhm.
talk again. Because I think you may find that having it just about you is not really all that satisfying. So think about, what else you can do out there. There is an enormous amount of ageism. This is a reality. It's just like there is sexism, there is racism, there is ageism. This is real. How do you deal with that? Stay open, stay curious, hang out with younger people, and never, ever say something like, well, back when we were wherever, we used to do it this way. Just don't do that. Just shut up. I know you want to say that, don't, because it's irrelevant. It's really, the things that you've done in the last 2 to 3 years, that's relevant. Anything, 30, whatever, 20 years ago, this doesn't matter. And it's going to alienate people. And what you want to do is, if you're looking to get a job when you're older, don't do that. Go into the interview and ask a lot of questions. be like, oh, I'm so interested in this. Tell me about this. How do you do this now? How do you do your internal communications? How do you do reach out? How do you do your customer acquisition? That's so interesting. What are the sort of problems that you have? Like, ask them a ton of questions because as an employee, what the employer wants is someone who is curious and creative and can show up and get the job done. So we know that you can show up and get the job done. What we want to test for is, are you curious? Are you creative? Can you think in new ways? Or are you stuck in something that you did in 1985 or 2005 or whenever? Um, avoid that.
And what you're saying is interesting. I'm thinking of my two of my nephews, and they're teenagers, and I'll always say to them, I'm like, what do I need to know? Tell me what
Yeah,
I need to know. You're always on your
yeah.
phone. What are you doing on your phone?
What's
What's
on
so
your phone?
important? To like
That's right.
tell, oh, what apps are you using? Tell me all about it. I'm interested. Why is this important to you?
Mhm.
And then I might say something like, oh, well, like I can't, like, that's so amazing to me. When I was your age, I didn't even know what a cell phone was. So not trying to like say this is how it used to be, so how it should be, but just try to like get into their lives and figure out what's
Right.
important to them.
But remember, they don't care what
They
you did.
don't.
But it's immaterial. And in the same way, if you're looking for a job and you're 60, 65, the person who's hiring you is probably going to be 35, maybe
Yeah.
40. That's 25-year difference. They do not care what like think of yourself when you were 35, like what things were like 20 or 25 years beforehand. It was like it's just immaterial. So you want to talk, you want to be all about what's going on today and keep it at that and just resist that urge to
Yes.
say, well, when I was that age,
I know.
we did whatever. And oh my gosh, it was great. So when you're out with your cronies at night, fine, you can say that. But with these other people, no, shut up about that.
I'm going to practice with them.
It's hard.
It
We
is.
all
It
do it,
is.
right?
So tell us, where can our listeners find and follow you and your ventures?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have two main things that we do. So we do Ageist, and Ageist is a weekly magazine. It comes out every Thursday. It's free. You can sign up for it. You just go to ageist.com. There'll be a pop-up, sign up. You get it every week. And we work really, really hard on this. And then also every week we publish the SuperAge podcast. And the SuperAge podcast tends to be more about science, medicine, things like that we need to be aware of, which can help us live healthier and longer.
And I will share those links in the comment section, in the description, for anyone who wants to grab them there. And last thing, do you have any final thoughts or words of encouragement for our listeners, really regarding breaking ageist barriers?
I think for anyone, whatever age you are, whatever your circumstance, remember you're stronger, braver, and more capable than you think you are. And you can do more at whatever age or circumstance life finds you in than you're probably allowing yourself to imagine.
Love it. Thank you for your time and your advice and sharing all that you're doing with us.
Thanks. It's a pleasure. Good to chat.
Thank you for listening to Honestly Aging by Friends Life Care VigR, a unique program focused on aging with vitality, independence, growth, and resilience. You can find links and show notes from this episode on our website at friendslifecare.org/podcast. Thank you to David Stewart for joining us today. You can learn more about David, Ageist, SuperAge, and more by visiting ageist.com, superage.com, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, X, and TikTok. If you like our show, please rate, review, subscribe, and join us next time. To learn more about aging with vitality, independence, growth, and resilience, subscribe to our blog at friendslifecare.org/blog.